Hello, and welcome to a Classical Classroom Short. Here with me today is classical violinist Rachel Barton Pine, who, perhaps more importantly, plays violin for the metal band Earthen Grave. Rachel is going to talk with me a bit about the surprising intersections between classical and rock music. Rachel, welcome.
Great to be here. Since I know that both you and I are rock fans, and there are a number of classical works that do have connections to rock and metal. There are certain concertos that are sort of automatically appealing to rock fans because they have a lot of drama, a lot of intensity, maybe a lot of darkness, like the first movement of the Tchaikovsky or the entire Shostakovich, or just a lot of bombast like the Sibelius or the Brahms.
Gotcha. Okay.
I have an amazing story about the Brahms concerto. I was hanging out with Uli John Roth, the lead guitarist of the Scorpions, at his home in Berlin, and he asked me to play his favorite spot in the first movement of the Brahms, which is the end of the exposition. And then he said, "You see those licks? I started using those licks in my guitar solos." And then Eddie Van Halen started copying me. And then all the guitarists, of course, copy Van Halen. And now you'll hear that lick in like every guitar solo when it comes from the Brahms Violin Concerto. And that's such an amazing story. And when you hear that part of the Brahms, it's like, he's absolutely right. Or like the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto. I was at the Grammys 2 months ago, and the new lead guitarist of Guns N' Roses and I were hanging out, and he started air guitaring the Tchaikovsky Concerto and talking about how that was the piece that got him into music.
Well, like, I used to play when I was in like junior high. I was very into playing guitar, and I was very into metal. I discovered Yngwie Malmsteen. Have you heard his stuff?
Yeah, I have a bit of a problem with it, but yeah.
But I mean, to me, that sounds like very, very classical. Okay, I gotta know what your problem with Yngwie is.
Okay, well, it's the genre that he was one of the sort of progenitors of, this neoclassical metal. Now, of course, Uli John Roth is also considered to be a progenitor of neoclassical metal, and all of his stuff is very emotionally driven. And whereas I feel like guys like Yngwie are more intellectualizing it all, like it's all about the chord changes and the fast fingers and taking the construct of classical music and divorcing it from the emotional intent. And when you think about whether it's Baroque licks by Bach and Vivaldi, or the virtuoso Romantic era stuff by Paganini or whatever, those guys were not just playing notes. They were playing notes with a purpose, and a lot of these rock guitarists don't understand that. And
right, it's all about like technique and
Yeah, and that was just the jumping off point. That was just a means to an end, which was to transcend the technique, to move the listener and not just move them by impressing them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
that kind of stuff, I would listen to it, but I don't think I ever really connected with it. It was like I would listen to it and go, wow, that dude can play it fast.
Exactly. I mean, I prefer, like, when you hear, Bruce Dickinson, lead singer of Iron Maiden, talking about, listening to Mahler and Wagner and that stuff, and, like, trying to reach out to the person in the last row and get them excited about the music, and how, it's the power and intensity of classical music, not the notes, that inspire him. Like, that's more what I respect. It
just makes me think, like, how much goes into a particular sound, because it's the individual. It's their era. Everybody is of a time and a place. I'm sure it's the conductor and the orchestra with which you're playing.
Well, somewhat. That also has to do with, like, if let's put it this way, if the soloist is sort of more renowned, or one could say more important. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about dead colleagues, right? Okay, so if the violinist is more important than the conductor they're playing with, then whatever they say goes, whether or not the conductor likes it, and vice versa. And if they're both sort of equally ranked, then if they disagree, they have to try to work out a compromise. But in violin concertos, the violinist really does lead the way, unless the conductor has a really strong disagreement. And there's a story that Mutter was playing, was it the Sibelius, with Kelly Bidake, and they disagreed so vehemently that she actually canceled the concert. So that shows a lot of integrity, even though I'm sure the people who bought tickets weren't too pleased. But, when you have strong opinions, there was actually one funny incident. I won't say the name of the conductor or orchestra, but I was playing the Sibelius, and I tend to think of the Sibelius as having that really Scandinavian edge to it, kind of playing on the front end of the beat a little bit. And this conductor was German, and he had a very round approach to the sound, almost as if it was very expansive, like it was a Bruckner symphony. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't see eye to eye. We couldn't find an approach halfway in the middle. It was an impasse. So what ended up happening is whenever I was playing, it was my way. And whenever there were the 2D moments where the orchestra played without the soloist, all of a sudden the tempo would slow down and the attacks would round out, and it would become Bruckner, and then it would go back to my way as soon as I came back in. It was the most hilarious, ineffective interpretation you've ever heard. But what could you do? I wasn't going to cancel the concert like Mutter did.
I guess that's one way to compromise. Just play it your way when you're playing. And yeah, that's, something else that I was thinking of is you and I are rock fans. This is something that you don't get a lot with rock music. Bands have songs, and those songs are played by and for those bands. There are covers, of course, but you don't get these different interpretations of, say, a Nirvana song.
Actually, you do when you play them on classical instruments. And in fact, in a few days, I'm going down to do an unusual concert where I'm playing not with a professional symphony, but with the Little Rock Youth Orchestra. And part of the Arkansas, they're under the banner of the Arkansas Symphony, but I'm working with the high schoolers, and we're doing not only movements from Vivaldi and Bruch and Sibelius and Paganini, but in between the classical numbers, we're doing some of my own symphonic arrangements of Metallica, Black Sabbath, AC/DC, and Nirvana.
Nice.
And in creating those arrangements, it allows me to take the music that the bands, the composers, as you might call it, have written, and go farther with the interpretation. In other words, like maybe have more push and pull of the tempo, more wide dynamic contrasts, always keeping the spirit of the piece, but sort of almost, in my opinion, using the classical instruments to take it to greater heights.
Yeah.
The idea is to bring my fellow rock and metal fans into classical. So I never perform rock music without interspersing classical in an attempt to show my fellow headbangers that, hey, this classical stuff is just as cool as the rock music you already know and love. And it's worked wonderfully that people will discover classical that way, and then long after I've left town, they'll go back to that same symphony and hear a completely classical concert, and we've made a new classical fan.
Yeah, I like that approach. I like it sort of makes it a less alien art form, which I think sometimes classical music can be, just because we don't, when you're from a sort of different musical world, you often just don't get a chance to hear it that much.
Yeah, and there are, ideas that, you have to be dressed up, or you have to not clap, or, there's this intimidation of not just the music and whether you'll be able to understand it, but also the environment. And we try to break down both of those barriers. Of course, your show is doing such a great job, sort of introducing people, demystifying the music. And, the emotional is what it's all about, because you don't have to understand that, hey, here's the exposition and the development and the recapitulation and what do those words mean and how can I tell when they're happening. No, it's like, what is the emotion behind that piece?
And that's what it's all about, not the hokey pokey as formerly thought. Thanks to Rachel Barton Pine for being on the show. For more Classical Classroom, go to houstonpublicmedia.org/classroom. We're also on iTunes and on SoundCloud. We have our very own new page. It's soundcloud.com/classicalclassroom. Thanks for listening. Later.